Hello and welcome to another live ABRSM Trinity oral training stream from Music Online UK. And I hope that we will have a nice, enjoyable time together where we can all interact and get the most from this live stream. Okay, please do interact so that it will become much more useful for you, and also it'll become a lot more enjoyable for me doing the live stream if you interact. Now, a few little house rules just before we start this live stream. First of all, I want you to not go back to the beginning if you're joining this late, okay? So what I'd like you to do is fast forward to the moment that is actually live so that you can actually participate. Because if you go back to the beginning, you won't be able to ask the questions in real time. Okay, secondly, I'll just move this camera down a little bit more, otherwise it's a slightly strange view. Okay. And secondly, please do just actually introduce yourselves right now before we even get started on the questions and everything. You might like to just say hello. So we've got someone already saying hello who's a Cholsum Band. Maybe you could actually say what grades you're studying to make this live stream even more useful for those who are participating. Okay, and we have Beppo 1953. I remember you from a previous live stream, Beppo, so thanks for joining us again. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with a grade 8 style question, but do not panic because this question can be used for every type of grade. Okay, the grade 8 question will be, describe any notable features that you notice about this music. Okay, we have Isabel E, grade 5 on Wednesday. Well, good luck with your exam, Isabel. And hopefully something you learned today will be useful for that. Okay, so this question, you can talk about anything. Now, in grade 1, you have to talk about very simple things like the dynamics and the articulation. Moving on to grade 2, you might talk about tempo changes. Grade 3, talk about tonality. Then going through the higher grades, character, style, period, the structure, the texture, and all these different little things, okay? So whatever grade you're on, this question is useful for all of you. So I'm going to play you a little piece, and these questions are going to be in the style of a Trinity exam, but useful for ABRSM. That is to say, in Trinity you just get one piece, and they ask many questions about that same piece. In ABRSM, they will have different pieces for every question. So we're going to do the first variation on that. Okay, and this is George. You're also joining us, and I remember you from last time. Okay. Right, so here is the piece, and I'd like you to listen to it and then describe any notable features about this piece that you notice with regards to whatever grade you're doing. Okay, so we have different, let's have a little look, comments about what you notice about this piece. Now, Rupa Mana saying, is that a Baroque style piece? I wonder why you're saying it's a Baroque style piece. We'll go on to the style and period later on in the exam. Someone with a Russian name there saying, beautiful flower on the windowsill. Now that describes the character of the piece, okay. And we'll go on to the character of the piece later. Beppo, 1953, sounds like Chopin to you. And Isabel E is saying it's legato, and a minor tonality from Jessica Mackenzie. Okay, so they're all very good points. All right, now we're going to go through in a little bit more detail because that was just like a warm-up. It's a great little way of seeing what you can already hear. And Yat Lam Yong is saying from the Romantic period. So, who is right, who is wrong? There are some various answers. Thank you for all your comments there. Now, first of all, before we even go into anything that you've answered questions on, can anyone tell me how many beats are in a bar? Okay, I'm going to go through from the beginning again, not all the way through until we get an answer. I might just glance to the side to see your comments as I'm playing and try not to make a mistake as I'm looking to the computer. How many beats in a bar? At the moment. Right, now I'll stop there for a moment. We've got 3 beats in a bar and 2 beats in a bar and 4 beats in a bar. Right, those who said 4 are correct. Okay, those who said 2 are almost correct because 2s can divide into 4 and therefore it's easy to mistake those 2. Now, I'm going to play it in 2 in a bar and then in 4 in a bar, not the whole thing again, just about 4 bars of it. 2 in a bar would sound like this. Right, and now I'm going to play 4 in a bar. Let's see if we can hear the difference. Let's keep the comments nice, Jonathan. Those who said 3 are not correct, but yeah, let's always keep these comments nice. Otherwise, we'll have to take people out of the chat if they get unpleasant towards other members. We're all learning and at different stages of learning. So, the difference between 2 in a bar and 4 in a bar is where you hear the accents. Now, if you were listening carefully, you might have noticed that the 2 in a bar was an accent every other beat. Let's have a little listen again, okay? This is 2 in a bar. And it goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And there's like a marching feel to it, okay? 4 in a bar is much more like a walking feel where there's not quite such a heavy accent on the 3rd beat. Now listen for the 3rd beat. It's not as heavy as the 1st beat. And then 1, 3 is not as heavy. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear the difference? Okay. Right, now, yeah. There is a good point being made, something that a lot of the jumps sound like a Chopin waltz. It could well be very similar to a Chopin waltz, and we'll come to why later, but it is actually in 4 beats in a bar. So, now, Dynamics and articulation. Someone already mentioned above about the articulation being legato, so we'll leave that question. That was a correct answer. And I think it's quite obvious to most that it was legato, okay? But what about the dynamics and the use of dynamics? I'm going to just play about 8 bars of it again, okay? And I want you to comment on the use of dynamics, not just loud and quiet, but how it changed from loud to quiet, suddenly, gradually, etc., okay? Okay, so how did I change dynamics? There was obviously a variation in dynamics. It was quiet to start with. Okay, it started piano and then gradually goes to fortissimo. It has times when there is a moderate volume. However, at some chords it suddenly increases in volume. There's quite a lot of variation, that is true. And it's very hard to, I like that description. Who was that? Compsomanici, I remember you from a previous stream. It's like an ocean wave. Yes, sometimes it just crashes and sometimes it's gradually. Okay, so for example, in this little phrase, there's a crescendo there, then it comes down, and then sudden intensity again. Okay, so forte to piano. Right, now I'm going to play you a little bit from the end, and I want you to talk about what happens to the tempo, the speed of the music. Okay, here is the last 5 bars of the piece. No, let's do, okay, yeah, from there. So, can we talk about how it slows down? Yep, rallentando poco a poco. At the end, it gradually slows down. So, ritardando, it has a slow tempo with a rit at the end. Okay, they're all fairly sort of simple answers. And we're at the early grades of 1 and 2. Now, someone has also mentioned something to do with the tonality. Maybe you don't need me to play the piece again, but can you actually tell me about the tonality? That is the major or a minor key. I could start playing it again and see if we get an answer straight away. I think someone right at the beginning when I was asking about the grade 8 style question gave me an answer about, oh right, we have an answer already. Okay, Alanes da Coco is saying it's in a minor key, and also Jessica and Compsomanici, minor. Okay, so you're all correct. Very easy answer to talk about. Right, so we'll leave that question. I won't have to play the whole piece again for you to answer that one. What about the character of the piece? Now, this is a question that a lot of people find difficult to answer. Yet Beppo's saying it modulates sometimes major and minor and back again. That is correct. Let's go on to the character of the piece, okay? Now, why this is difficult to answer for some people is because they don't really know how to put it into words. They can feel the mood, the emotion of the music. Okay, now we've got a good answer there. Rupamana is saying it has a dark and ominous character. Now I really like that answer, and I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, the minor key is part of it. Okay, it resembles that of an ocean wave, spontaneous and is very expressive. Okay, the dynamics, tonality and tempo all add to the characteristics. Now, we're getting the idea, all right, because often in the exam, the question might be something like, what musical features give this piece its character? Now, we've had a mixture of both. So some people were saying a dark and an ominous character. And then the question would be, what musical features give it a dark and ominous character? And the tonality, which someone else answered, the minor key, for example, gives this piece its ominous character, okay? Or dark character. Very expressive. Okay, so how can you say it's very expressive? What musical features make it expressive? How do you put that into words, that something is expressive? Okay, so you could mention that the big contrasting dynamics make the music very expressive. All right, it's quite sad, emotional, characteristic due to its mild tonality and slow tempo. Yeah, and that's another one. The slow tempo makes it fairly sad, but also very beautiful as well. Okay, so there is a few little ways of answering the question about the character of the piece. Now, we've also already had some guesses about what period of music it comes from. Okay. I think I remember rightly, and some of your answers coming out now will be very useful in terms of, how can I say, answering the next question. Okay, so someone said earlier romantic, and someone just repeated that, and someone mentioned Baroque. Now, also someone was also talking about trills. I'm just looking up. The trills can give some movements to the piece, Rupa Mano was saying. And I'm not sure whether that was the reason, but the trills, some people might think, all these ornaments, and there wasn't just trills, but there was lots of little ornament figures like that. And then a lot of ornamented notes. And a lot of people will think that's related to the Baroque period, okay? True. So was it Baroque or was it romantic? And how? Okay, some of you think it's romantic. Why do you think it's romantic and not Baroque, for example, if that's what your opinion is? Okay. We have Jessica with a reason here. This is what you've got to do in the exams. You have to give reasons why, all right? Not just say romantic or Baroque or classical. Okay, and Jessica was saying due to the use of rubato, lots of dynamics and expressions. Okay, that is absolutely right. There is a lot of rubato in this piece. If anyone doesn't know what rubato means, it's when you pull around the time. If you notice, I'll play a little section again. And now, did you notice to that last bar, it was getting faster, all right? And then it pulls back in speed. It just goes forward and backwards, ebbing and flowing. And in that sense, the speed is continually changing, and that's called rubato. And that is a feature of romantic period, not of the Baroque period. Right, let's just catch up on some of your comments here, because I'm sure they're very good ones. Okay, I have to actually scroll up a little bit because there have been so many comments while I was playing just 4 bars. Thank you for your participation, everybody. Right, romantic because there is a large note range. That is a good point. A big range of notes with the graduated dynamics. Yes. And the rubato. Now, another thing about the Baroque period, we have what they call stepped dynamics, right? You have one section of one dynamic and then it steps, or terrace dynamics, other people call it. It just changes suddenly. The use of crescendo and decrescendo was not very common in Baroque music. Okay, some modern performers will put a little bit of crescendo or whatever, but generally the tradition is that they are stepped or terraced dynamics. So that's the reason why it's not Baroque and it is Romantic. Do we have any other comments? Right, Isabel saying, I don't think it's Baroque because Baroque music doesn't use a big range on the keyboard. Yes, some of the notes I just played probably wouldn't even exist on a Baroque keyboard. It wasn't a modern piano like we have now. Okay, then Alan Ness also mentioned that there was the use of the sustain pedal. Again, something that didn't even exist in the Baroque period. So that is a very good answer there. When Jonathan Hartley's saying borrowed time, I'm assuming you're referring to the rubato effect, the pulling back and pushing forward in the time. Okay, pedal isn't a feature. Yeah, we mentioned that already in the Baroque period. Beppo, the range of dynamics, and the broken chords are not characteristic of Baroque. Quick typing there, I think you've got a few typos. Okay, and a lyrical melody. Now there's another thing. Okay, you've also repeated about the rubato and the sustain pedal, but a lyrical melody. A lot of the tunes from the, well, not so much tunes, but the vocal lines or the melodic lines from the Baroque period are very ornate, very embellished. That's where the ornaments come in, but not very singable. Okay, you could go away from this live stream and have that tune in your head and sing it back to you as you're walking down the street. Okay, it's something that can stick in your mind. Baroque music is not so singable, and so this is a particular feature of the Baroque period. Okay, cantabile style, rich harmony, a little bit like Schumann, wide dynamic range and keyboard range. Okay, right, so I think we have successfully deduced that it is from the Romantic period, and you have all come back with some excellent answers as to why it's from the Romantic period. Okay, and you need to keep these answers in your mind. So when you go into your exam, if you're in one of the higher grades where they ask you about the style and period, I believe it's from grades 5 upwards. Okay, have some set answers in your mind. Just think about some of the things we've discussed today. Don't be flummoxed at the question. You know, you think, oh, I've got the oral test now, and the examiner asks you, you know, what musical features tell you that this piece is from the Romantic period, and then you have to start racking your brains. Have those answers ready before you go into the exam. Some typical features of the different periods of music that you can just rattle off almost like on rotes, yeah? So that it won't be a stumbling stone. Because I'll tell you one thing. When you do the oral tests, you get marked on quick and perceptive responses, not just getting the right answers. If you hesitate, if you think about it for a few seconds and like this, you'll lose marks. Not many, but you won't get the full marks you could get if you just go boom, there's the answer. Okay, so hesitation and looking like you really know what you're talking about and being perceptive and responsive gets you marks in the oral section of the exam. Okay, right, so let's move on. Now, one of the worst parts, most people would say, of the ABRSM style oral tests is singing. Okay? And you have to sing back phrases. Now, I can't test singing back phrases here on a live stream because I can't hear you singing. Okay? But what would be, let's have a little look. A good test would be to, hang on, I'm just getting some, getting rid of some comments, all right, unnecessary comments in the live stream. If anyone makes unnecessary comments, they will be removed from the live stream, so just, you know. Right, now, I'm coming back to what I was saying. Singing is one of the things that is feared the most in the oral tests. So for example, I've got someone doing grade 6 at the moment, and they're happy with doing the cadences and answering the questions about the structure and the texture of the piece. But when they have to do the sight singing, that is their weakest part, okay? Right, now, what we can do here, although I can't hear you sing, obviously, in a live stream, what we can do is reverse sight singing. what is reverse sight singing? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play you some notes. I'm going to actually try and hide my hand so you can't actually see what I'm doing. Although for some reason, I do believe you're seeing this in reverse, so that might be confusing for you anyway. Your picture on your screen is showing everything backwards. So this Senyo sign that I have on my t-shirt, for example, looks backwards to you. I don't know why the camera does that, but it should be the other way around. So what I play on here might actually work out backwards for you. Anyway, that's not the point. All right, I'm going to play you some notes, and I want you to name the notes that I play. All right. Now, by naming the notes that I play without actually seeing them, you are doing what we could call like a reverse sight singing. Because if you can imagine what the notes are by hearing them, then if you see some notes, you should be able to imagine what they sound like. If you understand my... for this, today we're seeing you normally. Okay. Because in previous live streams, yes, I'm looking at my screen now. Yes, the Senyo sign is facing the right way. It was all reversed in the past, so I don't know what's happened. Technology. There we go. So then I'll need to hide my hands so that you can't see the notes I'm playing. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a little section. Which one did I decide to do? All right, this one here. Okay, so I'm hiding my hands. Okay, that's quite a lot. All right, I'll give you the fact that the key is G minor. That means there are two flats. I'll give you the fact that we're starting on an F. All right. Who's this? My piano favourites just joined. Can you start after X Factor? No, sorry. We're starting now. We've already started. Okay, you'll have to decide whether X Factor is more important than the Music Online UK live stream. Anyway. All right, Jonathan Hartley is saying it takes practice to get yourself the right way around. Some good comments. Anyway, can we get back to doing some reverse sight singing? We're in the key of G minor. You're starting on the note F. So let's just do a few at a time. The first four notes should be fairly easy. Okay, there are two flats in G minor. Could anyone name those four notes? It starts on an F. Okay, anyone got some ideas? Right, so Beppo, got F, G, F, E flat. F, G, F, E flat. All right, this is George, you are correct. It is F to G, but I'm sorry that Beppo got way ahead of you there. Right, that's the easy bit. Now, fair enough, George, you got the first two notes right. So, after the E flat, then we have a little bit of a jump, if you can hear that. Can do the next three notes. Okay, so we had F, G, F, E flat, and then bum, ba, bum. I'm not sure where you're starting there, Jonathan. You said F, B flat, A, G. Now, if you're starting from the second F, no, there isn't this. From the E flat, that's given. And then, right, let's get that interval. All right, can anyone name this interval? Because it's not a D or an E flat. The first note is an E flat, as we already, it's a fourth, two. Right, we started on the E flat, so it's a fourth. No, it's not a third, it's a fourth. Started on the E flat. Let's call them by their flat names rather than the sharp names. And if you're thinking of A sharp, maybe just enharmonic equivalent. Thank you, Jessica. B flat is the correct answer. Well done, Jessica. The prize goes to you. Right, so we got to there. And what are the two notes after the B flat? That should be fairly easy. Are they going up or down? And they're step movements, aren't they? All right, so it's B flat, and then the next two notes after B flat are C and D. Correct. This is George. Well done, George. Okay, and Beppo. Now, this competition sometimes is unfair because you do have, well, the disadvantage sometimes of some people have better internet connections and their answers just come through quicker. So my piano favourites is also correct. So C and D. So here we've got up to the D, and then I'm going to carry on 3 more notes. Can you give me the 3 notes after the C and the D? But I'll play from the beginning. What are those last 3 notes after the C and the D? I'll play the whole phrase again. Okay, L and S, E flat, D and C, correct. And then 3 more notes to finish the phrase that I gave you right at the beginning. E flat, D and C were correct. And then let me play the whole phrase again so you can get the context. Almost my piano favourites, but not quite. Right, this is the C that we finished on that we got correct so far. There's the C, and my piano favourites correct. G, A, oh, no, not quite. G, A, and B flat. Yes, maybe you're writing quickly and just did a typo. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Right, now that is reverse sight singing. And it's a good way of practicing sight singing, all right? If you haven't got music and something to actually practice doing the literal sight singing tests, when you're hearing a tune, try and hear the intervals in it, even if you're just listening to a song on the radio. If you can hear the intervals in a tune, and okay, imagine that you know the key, just put it in C major if you don't know the key, and then just work it out from there if you haven't got perfect pitch. And then you can try and imagine what the notes are. Now, if you can do that, you should be able to sight sing. It's just the reverse process, okay? Right, so now what grade sight singing was that? That's probably about grade 6, okay? Up to grade 5, you have mostly step movement. So for example, a grade 5 sight singing test would be going up in step, sometimes a third, and then the only interval greater than a third is what they call the rising fourth. So if you're in F major, you might just get the last 2 notes as C to F, the rising fourth at the end. That's grade 5. In grade 4 sight singing, I don't think you even get the rising fourth. Then from grade 6, the intervals get a little bit more wide. Okay? Right, now we are going on to questions for grade 8 as well. All right. But basically the only difference with grade 8 sight singing, grade 7 sight singing, etc., is that there is an accompaniment to it. In grade 6 sight singing, well, there is an accompaniment in grade 6 sight singing, but in grade 7 sight singing, another part will be going on that's a little bit more independent. So more like a Baroque piece where you've got the polyphonic ideas and 2 voices interweaving, and it's sort of a bit more off-putting. But the actual notes that you've got to sing, if you can just stay focused on your notes, are not any harder than in a grade 6. They just try and put you off a little bit more in the grade 7. And then in grade 8, it's the same idea, but you'll have an upper part that you have to sight sing against. So then the singing the lower part to something that you're hearing that's higher than you is even more difficult. But the actual notes you've got to sing are not any more difficult in grade 8 for a sight singing test, okay? So a grade 4 sight singing exam test would be something very simple. Okay, like the first little, like from there. Right, just stepwise movements. Maybe a third might be included as well. all right? And there wouldn't be any rhythm in grade 4 sight singing. You can sing in free time. Another thing you have to bear in mind from grade 6 onwards is that you need to have some rhythm to your sight singing. It's got to be according to a beat. Okay, now let's think about grade 6 then. Texture. There's a word that a lot of people just scratch their heads. And what does texture mean? So can anyone give me a little bit of an idea what they would say the texture of this piece is? Let's just go back and... Okay, right, we've got some answers coming on. Homophonic is a good word. Tune with chords, all right? And Alan S is saying it is a thick harmony with a melody and the accompaniment of chords. So that's a perfect answer for the texture. Now, for those of you who might not be familiar, there is a nice word that Jessica used, homophonic. And the other word that you might have to use is polyphonic. So, homophonic doesn't just mean one voice, although you'd think logically by the literal translation of homophonic means one sound. But it's maybe many voices, but singing as one, right? The rhythm is generally related one to the other. Polyphonic on the... let's have a little look. Okay, we have some more spams, so we just block these users. Okay. All right, there we go. They can keep on trying, but there we are. So one sound is monophonic. Very good, Jessica. Right, now, polyphonic is when you have different voices, more than one voice, but they interweave one with another, okay? So that is much more like a question and answer type conversation. Right, okay, don't worry about any, I think we have just basically a troll who's got many accounts and they just keep on coming back, so we just ignore them. They're stupid people that haven't got a life basically, so just let them carry on and we'll just block them. Right, so, alright, Alan S, which one is like conversation? Right, the conversation one is what we call the polyphonic, alright? So when you're having a conversation with someone, you don't speak at the same time. Well, maybe if you're not a very good listener and you're always arguing with someone, so people just shouting at each other, and that could be called cacophony, right? Just chaos. But in general, when you have a conversation with someone, you talk to them and you wait for their answer. And in music, that's what polyphonic is, all right? So, that's a very good set of answers for the texture and the structure of the music. Now, we're going to a couple of little more details that get into the higher grades. Modulation, all right? In the various grades, you get modulations to the dominant, the subdominant, or the relative major or minor, okay? And I'm going to play you just the opening again, and I want you to tell me what type of modulation you heard, if you can relate to that question. Okay, so we've come to a different key there. All right. Right, we're still getting some answers. Maybe you've got a delay on your internet. So the relative major, Alan S, absolutely correct. And that one is quite easy to hear because No, you're absolutely correct. It's a pretty easy question, even for people that are doing a much lower grade, because we were in a minor key, and then suddenly it's like the sun's come out and we're in a major key. Yeah? So that's a modulation to the relative major. Okay. Now, finally, one of the trickiest things in the grade 8 section is cadences. And you also get cadences in grades 7 also, and maybe 6, I'm trying to think. So, yes, I think in grade 6 you have to work out perfect and imperfect cadences. And then in grade 8 you have plagal cadences. In grade 7 you have interrupted cadences. So it could be any one of those 4. Right, now right at the end of the piece, I'm going to play you a couple of bars, and there are going to be 2 cadences. I want you to name both of them, okay? Now, first of all, what are the bass notes of the last 2 chords that you heard? Right, we're in G minor. Sorry. So these 2 chords here. Can you name the 2 chords that are used at the end? It is actually a perfect cadence. Okay, so it's chord 5 and then chord 1. All right, so D to G. Now, I'm going to play the very last 2 bars of the piece, but make them slightly different to what is written to adapt to this question a little bit more. So carrying on from there. Okay, this is different to what's written. So the last 2 chords, I'll just play them on their own. What were those 2 chords? Hopefully the answers that we're getting now are relating to the ones that I've just played and not the previous question, because it gets a bit confusing with the delay on the internet. Okay, so this is George. You're saying 4, 6, 5, 1. I'm not sure which part you were referring to there. Okay, interrupted chord C to G. Now, my piano favourites, correct. It's C to G. I'm not sure, can you actually see my hands there? No, I don't think you can, because I have to come up to the, let's see. Yes, you can. So you possibly could actually look at the bass notes, but that would be cheating. There's chord 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then chord 1. All right. Now, does anyone know, because this is grade 8, so, okay, we're getting a rather more exclusive group from all of you now, but does anyone know what we call that cadence? You can see above middle E. So it's plagal. Well done, Beppo. All right. So there we have covered almost most of the questions you could possibly get in any grade at an ABRSM exam. The singing part, obviously, we can't cover so well, although we've done some reverse sight singing. And if you found this useful and you'd like to have some more practice live stream oral training, we're going to be doing some again the same time next week. Now, normally I would have like a 2-week gap, but in 2 weeks is another one of my passions, is the final for the Formula One Championship, and I'd like to be watching that instead of doing a live stream. So we'll be doing some more training next week and then have a break the week after, okay? And probably continue doing these live streams every other week or twice a month at least until the end of the exam period over the Christmas break. I think people are more relaxed and we'll just have a little break ourselves and then come back again in the new year. All right, so if you want to have a little bit more training, please join me again in 1 week's time at the same time, and I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for all your participation, and again, we'll see you in a week's time. Bye bye for now.